Good afternoon. The city continues to swelter under a heat warning, with the humidex making temperatures feel like the low 40s. Cooler air is expected to arrive this evening, bringing the possibility of thunderstorms. CTV's Beth Macdonell is among those trying to beat the heat today. Beth, how have people been coping with these temperatures?
Talk about hot heat. It feels unrelenting this summer. Down here at Woodbine Beach, though, people aren't hiding from it. Many, in fact, are embracing it. This is the city's 6th heat wave so far this year, with Toronto experiencing more than 20 days this summer with temperatures over 30 degrees. Environment and Climate Change Canada says this summer is hotter than normal. And part of the story is all the sustained heat we've been having. There hasn't been too many cool days or rain for us to have a little bit of a break. Plus, there's been plenty of humidity. Everyone is encouraged to watch for early signs of heat exhaustion, symptoms like headache, nausea, and dizziness.
Too much heat. Too many heat days.
Just remember, it's going to be the coolest year of the rest of your life. So get used to that too. Drink plenty of water.
I like it. It's summer, and we don't have this type of weather for very long. So trying to enjoy it while I can. Being down here, it's beautiful.
Drink lots of water, and you just get out there and you got to keep doing your stuff, so it doesn't make much difference. Yeah, you just keep going.
What do you like about this heat?
Nothing much, really.
This one has definitely been a very hot summer for days of 30 or more. Every year is going to be different. This year, we happen to be under the influence of a fairly persistent ridge of high pressure across southern Ontario, extending into Quebec and northeastern United States. That's what's been responsible for the very dry conditions and the continuous surge of warm, moist air from the States. So it has been very hot, a very humid summer.
And drinking plenty of water is one of the keys to staying on top of this heat. As you mentioned, a little bit of a cool down may be coming, but Environment Canada says expect the hot, steamy weather to continue. Reporting live at Woodbine Beach, I'm Beth Macdonell. Michelle and Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. And lifeguards will be off duty at city beaches a little earlier beginning today. Starting this week, beach supervision is being reduced by a half an hour, with lifeguards leaving their posts at 7 p.m. instead of 7:30. The city says the change is because of a reduction in daylight hours at this time of year. Lifeguards will still begin their shifts at 10:30 a.m. City beaches will remain supervised until September 1st.
And we have more news in a moment, but first, here's a live look at the city this afternoon. Lots of sunshine. It's another hot one, so if you're outside, take all the necessary precautions. There is some relief from the heat on the way, but that's a few days from now. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. Hey, Lindsay.
Yeah, Nathan, this is our 6th heat event of the summer season so far, and we are eyeing down another one for next weekend. But first, here's a look at the heat warning that remains in place across southern Ontario, central parts of the province, and extending into the province of Quebec. It is already 30 degrees in Toronto. It feels like 37, feeling like 38 this hour. Already in Hamilton, and I say already because we still have several hours of daytime heating to go. You'll find a little bit of relief the closer you get to the shoreline of Lake Ontario today, but winds not overly strong. They are coming out of the south at around 7 kilometers per hour. Not only is it going to be a hot week, but it's going to be a mostly dry week as well. There's a cold front that we're watching off to the northwest. It's not going to do a whole lot to cool us down as we make our way through the middle of the week. It could bring us some much needed rain. Here's today at a glance. 33 degrees will feel like 40. We'll talk about the risk of thunderstorms into tomorrow coming up. For now, Michelle, I'll send it over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. And amid this heat, firefighters are working to contain an out-of-control forest fire in Kawartha Lakes.
Local officials say roughly 27 hectares is burning in a heavily wooded area about 2 hours northeast of Toronto. CTV's Rahim Ladhani has been following the firefighting effort and joins us live with more. Rahim.
Hey, Nathan, I spoke with the mayor of Kawartha Lakes this morning. He told me while the forest fire, which is north of Bobcaygeon near Burnt River, is not under control, he says it is being managed. And today, ground efforts are going to be intensifying. Over the weekend, water bombers were leading the battle against the flames. We saw them filling up their reservoir in 4 Mile Lake. Today, local fire departments will be shuttling water to the areas of need. At this point, there have been no reported injuries to civilians or crews who are on the front lines as they try to get this fire under control after it sparked Saturday afternoon just after 5 p.m. Now, Kawartha Lakes does not have the resources on its own to fight this scale of a forest fire. It's about the size of 50 football fields. And so the Ministry of Natural Resources is leading this operation alongside crews from neighboring counties such as Trent Lakes and Haliburton. No cause of the fire has been confirmed, but recent weather events in the Kawartha Lakes region going back to this spring appears to be playing a factor. Have a listen to what Mayor Doug Elmsley told me.
Ice storm we had at the end of March brought down a lot of trees and created a lot of brush. And of course, with the tremendously dry conditions, it's just a recipe for this type of event. And then we had an electrical storm Friday afternoon, which I think we can extrapolate and say that it was probably the cause of this fire.
Officials say no evacuation orders are not necessary at this time, but a burn ban is in effect. Also, they're reminding residents that flying a drone within 9 kilometers of a forest fire is illegal. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladhani. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Rahim. 2 men were taken to hospital following a stabbing in Scarborough last night. Police say it's not exactly clear where the stabbing happened, but they cordoned off an area outside a gas station near Morningside and Finch. Paramedics were called to the area just before 11 p.m. yesterday for reports of a stabbing. A man in his 20s was taken to hospital with potentially life-threatening injuries. Police have since confirmed he's in stable condition. A second man was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. So far, there's been no word on possible suspects.
One person has been sent to hospital after being struck by a vehicle in Vaughan. This happened around 6:30 p.m. yesterday in the area of Highway 7 and Kipling Avenue. Police say a pedestrian was crossing the intersection when they were struck by a vehicle which was traveling north and making a right turn onto Highway 7. The pedestrian was taken to hospital with serious injuries. The driver involved remained on scene. Also out of Vaughan, a motorcyclist remains in hospital with what police say are significant injuries following a crash last night. This happened around 7 in the area of Fossil Hill Road and St. Francis Avenue, north of Rutherford Road. Police say the driver of the other vehicle involved left the scene. The cause of this crash remains under investigation. The city has announced an expansion to police and emergency services.
The mayor made the announcement this morning alongside the chair of the Toronto Police Services Board. CTV's Allison Hurst has been following this story and joins us live with more. Allison.
Nathan, that news conference just wrapped up in the last couple of minutes, but what we're hearing from Toronto Police was that the 911 call wait times last month were 28 seconds, and you compare that to the year before when they were 96 seconds, so they have seen a significant drop. Now, Mayor Olivia Chow and the city's the chair of Toronto Police Board say this is all part of their plan to reduce 911 call wait times and add more boots on the ground. Last November, the police board approved a multi-year hiring plan to hire the maximum number of officers the province allows, and that's what's happening this year and for the next 2 years, 4 classes of 90 officers per year. They're also hiring and training more 911 operators, and the average 911 wait time is down 42%.
Toronto are hiring 90 more 911 operators, and as we speak, we're hiring them now. 60 have already been hired. I saw them being trained and mentored by very experienced operators, and it was wonderful to see the feeling that we can do this together, and it was great. And another 30 will be working by the end of the year.
Since these efforts began, shootings and firearm discharges have dropped by 41%, and homicides are down 56%. Property crime is also declining, with car thefts down 35%, break-and-enters are down 11%, carjackings have decreased by 18%, and even reported hate crimes. These occurrences have fallen by 35%.
And to further reduce those call wait times, Mayor Olivia Chow says Toronto Police now have a new non-emergency line. People can dial star TPS or star 877, and that is for all non-emergency calls to try and keep the 911 line free for any real and true emergencies. They also said that 27% of calls were pocket dials or accidental. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Michelle, back to you.
Thanks, Allison. The city is launching a new campaign to educate people about the proper use of bike lanes as well as other cycling rules. The campaign includes a number of posters which tell cyclists not to stop in bike lanes, as well as make sure they are riding in the right direction. The posters also remind cyclists not to ride on sidewalks and that mopeds are too fast to be in bike lanes. The city says sidewalks, bike lanes and roads are shared by thousands of people every day, and they hope this campaign will help keep them safe. And a heads up for subway riders. There are early closures on a section of Line 2 to be aware of this week, starting tonight. Subway service between Woodbine and Kennedy ends at 11 p.m. The early closure will last through to Friday. Shuttle buses will operate until the end of service around 2 a.m. The closure is to accommodate track work in the area. TCC staff will be on hand to assist customers.
Air Canada flight attendants will be picketing at airports in 4 major cities today, including Toronto.
It's part of a national day of action as workers push for improved wages ahead of a possible strike. CTV Sean Leathong is at Pearson Airport this afternoon with the latest. Sean.
Well, Michelle and Nathan, it's situation normal here at Pearson Airport, Terminal 1 right now. But at about 1 o'clock today, we're expecting that mobilization, they're calling it, of flight attendants here in Toronto, as well as in Montreal, Calgary, and Vancouver. They'll be standing in silence as a protest, but they say all the talking will be done at the bargaining table. What they're looking for is an increase in wages and changes to what they call unpaid work. But it's still a ways away. As we know, they'd be in a position to strike if there's no deal by midnight on Friday, so strikes will be effective on Saturday. And we do know that planes can't take off if they don't have flight attendants here, so you can imagine what this place would turn into on Saturday morning if that were the case. Now, I mentioned what the sticking points were as they are looking for more wages. We also spoke this morning to Shannon Elliott from CUPE Local 4098 talking about what unpaid work looks like. Here's what she had to say.
So it's pretty shocking to hear that we are actually only paid when the aircraft is in motion. So the entire time that we spend doing our pre-flight safety checks, boarding, deplaning, any medical emergencies that happen on the ground, we're doing that all uncompensated. It is an industry practice. However, just because it is the normal environment in the industry, it doesn't mean that it's right, nor does it mean that it's okay by today's standards.
Elliott also points out that passengers can be compensated when there is a delay, but flight attendants are not. They will be stuck on the ground and they are unpaid. So they'd be looking for changes to that. Now, I did mention there still are 5 days worth of negotiations. The union would have to give a 72-hour strike notice, so that would have to be done on Wednesday if we are going to go that far. But there is still time for a deal to be reached. Now, it had been reported last week that Air Canada had offered a large pay increase to the flight attendants that they said would make them the highest paid in Canada. At last time we spoke to the union, they said that no such offer had been delivered. So we're waiting to see if there any common ground can be created, if they can reach a deal. But in the meantime, we will see that mobilization coming up in just under an hour or so, and we will be here reporting live. I'm Sean Leathong. Nathan and Michelle, send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. More than 700 public elementary school educators will be meeting in the city this week. The Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario is hosting its annual meeting at the Sheraton Centre Hotel. Members from across the province will set policies and directions for the coming school year. They'll also be given the chance to review reports and financial statements. The conference runs until Thursday. The union represents around 84,000 teachers and early childhood educators. Still to come, U.S. President Donald Trump is set to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska later this week. We'll have the latest on the concerns around the talks a little later in the show.
A wildfire in Newfoundland and Labrador has grown to cover nearly 5,000 hectares, with reports more homes have been lost to the flames.
You know, it's hot all around and it's windy. Those are not the conditions we want to try and suppress the fire. So that's the bad news. The good news is actually fire suppression efforts are going fairly well as we speak in the area of Western Bay. So, you know, Mother Nature, of course, is who we're fighting. But I think it's important to recognize that the firefighters are doing a good job and suppression is working at the moment.
As of this morning, the Kingston wildfire, the largest in that province, remains out of control. It's one of 2 out-of-control fires burning in Newfoundland. Roughly 3,000 people have been displaced by the Kingston wildfire.
And hot and dry conditions are fueling the Wesley Ridge wildfire on Vancouver Island. However, there could be some good news for hundreds of people under an evacuation order. The regional district of Nanaimo is hoping to allow some evacuees to return home as early as today.
We continue to monitor conditions to make sure that it is optimal for people to be able to return home and that we have appropriate information and everything on hand. Barring any significant changes, we are still actively working towards that date, and we would continue to send updates should we not be able to meet the Monday goal that we have set.
Nearly 300 properties are under evacuation orders, while another 350 are under evacuation alert. And CTV's Scott Hurst has been following the wildfire situation across the country and joins us live with more. Scott, where have the wildfire hotspots been this past weekend?
Nathan, in the last two videos you're showing that really shows the scope of this wildfire season and how trying it has been from coast to coast as you focused on wildfires far out on the East Coast and all the way out on the West Coast on Vancouver Island. So those two fires are, of course, incredibly concerning as they're still considered out of control and forcing people from their homes. And as we've heard from the Premier of Newfoundland, the fear is more homes have been lost in the fire that is affecting Kingston, which is in the area of Conception Bay North, burning on the Avalon Peninsula. And that fire particularly is about 50 square kilometers and still burning out of control. But really across the country, there are hundreds, more than 700 active wildfires still burning. And in total this year, more than 73,000 square kilometers have burned. That is the second worst on record except for 2023. And that is just the devastating wildfire season a few years ago. The last three fire seasons are all in the top 10 worst on record. So that just kind of puts into perspective what we've been seeing for several months and talking about, Nathan, for several months as we focused so much on the prairie provinces. There are wildfires of concern still burning on either side of the country and still hundreds in between.
You know, it really looks dire looking at that map. Is there any forecasted end in sight to this year's wildfire season?
Well, looking ahead, the rest of the wildfire season doesn't bring much comfort, particularly for those who have been forced out of their homes and are still out of their homes wondering what might be left of their communities. The federal government, for its response, has forecast above normal temperatures through much of the rest of August, so taking us into September, so still several weeks away, and we're expecting above average temperatures for many areas. And with that, the drought conditions are likely to only intensify across many of those areas. And so really over the next couple of weeks, as we're still in the thick of wildfire season, there isn't much relief across the country when it comes to this record-setting wildfire season already, Nathan.
All right, CTV's Scott Hurst in the CTV National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thousands of people attended Montreal's annual Pride Parade this weekend.
But behind the celebration, organizers are dealing with controversy. CTV's Sweta Rassi explains.
Flags, music, and dancing filled the streets of downtown Montreal as thousands came out to celebrate the annual Pride Parade.
We are really happy to show our kids, you know, different kinds of love and different kinds to be a human being, you know.
Well, our son is gay, so it's really nice to see he can live in a city and a country where he can be himself.
But behind the celebrations, there are disagreements from other groups that say Fierté Montréal is not inclusive.
For a long time, not feeling represented or like there was space for us that was representative or safe for our communities.
Wild Pride held its own separate parade on Sunday. The group has been critical about Fierté Montréal's stance on Israel and Gaza. Last month, Fierté Montréal excluded a Jewish LGBTQ2S+ organization from participating in the event, sending GAVA a letter saying it was being banned for engaging in hate speech. But after some pushback, Fierté Montréal reversed the decision and allowed GAVA to take part. In recent months, about 20 queer groups cut ties with Fierté Montréal, saying it was fostering a toxic environment. The parade marks the end of Pride Week, but the conversations about inclusion continue. Sweta Rassi, CTV News.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is promoting her province's energy in Mexico City. Smith is meeting with government officials as well as private sector and industry leaders in an effort to encourage new investment and trade. Mexico is Alberta's fourth largest trading partner and is one of the province's fastest growing export markets. In 2024, bilateral trade between Alberta and Mexico totaled nearly $2.9 billion. Smith's trip marks the first official visit to Mexico by an Alberta premier since 2019.
Ahead of a planned meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling on the global community to increase economic pressure on Russia. During his evening address yesterday, Zelensky called for sanctions on Russia, stating that if Russia does not want to stop its invasion, its economy must be stopped. Ukrainian emergency services say at least a dozen people were injured in a Russian strike in southern Ukraine on Sunday. Now, Zelensky's comments come ahead of a bilateral meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart Putin in Alaska later this week. Ukraine and its allies have criticized the absence of Ukraine in peace talks between Washington and Moscow. The White House says Trump is open to a trilateral meeting in the future, but stated the upcoming will proceed as planned per Putin's request.
Hundreds of mourners gathered in Gaza City this morning to take part in the funeral procession for a prominent Al Jazeera journalist who was killed, along with 4 colleagues, by an Israeli airstrike yesterday. Anas al-Sharif was one of the network's most recognizable reporters in Gaza. Al-Sharif, along with another correspondent and 3 camera people, were in a tent for journalists when they were struck. 2 other people were also killed. Israel's military confirmed it had targeted al-Sharif, claiming he was a Hamas leader. Al Jazeera has dismissed that claim, calling the strike a blatant and premeditated attack on press freedom.
Australia says it will recognize a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly in September.
Australia will recognise the right of the Palestinian people to a state of their own, predicated on the commitments Australia has received from the Palestinian Authority. We will work with the international community to make this right a reality.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the Palestinian Authority has promised to hold general elections and to recognize Israel's right to exist. Albanese has been facing weeks of pressure from his cabinet to recognize a Palestinian state amid growing criticism over the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
In the U.S., Donald Trump is placing the Washington, D.C. Police Department under federal control and deploying the National Guard.
This city will no longer be a sanctuary for illegal alien criminals. We will have full, seamless, integrated cooperation at all levels of law enforcement, and we'll deploy officers across the district with an overwhelming presence. You'll have more police, and you'll be so happy.
The U.S. president says his decision is designed to make the American capital safer. 800 National Guard troops will be deployed, arriving within the coming week. Trump says the regular military will also be deployed if necessary, but indicated he doesn't think they will be needed. Trump signed an executive order and presidential memorandum before today's news conference, giving him authority to make the changes.
The National Peacekeepers Day ceremony was held in Ottawa this weekend.
Veterans from Ontario and Quebec gathered to remember veterans and honor those who died in the line of duty. CTV's Natalie Van Roy has the story.
Together they stand to remember. The National Peacekeepers Day ceremony held in Ottawa, honoring those fallen and marking the 65th anniversary of the UN mission in the Congo.
Today is a great opportunity to remember about the dedication and service of peacekeepers within the UN framework.
For many here, this brings back memories.
This is our 6th time joining in on the National Peacekeepers Parade. I served with the UN. I also served with NATO as a peacekeeper. So this is very important to me because I know people that we've lost.
A moment of silence with a commitment to remember.
Just remembering all the people that I served with over my 4 tours overseas, and some of them are battling mental problems.
Canada's Chief of the Defence Staff highlighting how this country continues to handle peacekeeping missions.
It's always between 15 and 50, depending on the missions. And so in some cases, we have intermittent missions, such as flying in supplies for missions in Africa. And then we have also permanent.
The ceremony offering reflection for the next generation.
But to me personally, it just means to be here, to be present, and to discuss what's going on in the world right now, what has happened and what might happen, and to resolve everything as a community.
And also including the RCMP.
Since 1989, the police have been employed in peacekeeping missions overseas. The police have 6 times the positions overseas that the military does.
The laying of the flowers and signing of the Peacekeepers book wrapped up the event before a general salute followed by God Save the King. Natalie Van Roy, CTV News.
So it was a sweltering weekend, and now the week is off to a very similar start. Here's a look at your almanac. Now, the average daytime high at this point in the month of August is around 26 degrees. On average, we've been about 29 degrees this month alone. And it's going to be another sweltering one today. So 33 is our forecast high, which is going to feel like 40. Of course, we're also going to be paying attention to the air quality with increased wildfire activity happening. We're holding steady at about moderate risk today, tonight, and tomorrow, but things could change midweek. We're going to talk about this and the potential for some wet weather. We sure need it. Those details after the break.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
All right, let's talk about the forecast. When I was off for a few days, and before I left, we were under these heat alerts. I come back, and we still have the heat alerts.
We still do, and I was off before you, and it was straight heat and sunshine. We've all, I mean, with the vacations timed out really nice this year, if you're by the lake or if you're by a pool, if you can cool down, because it's been really hot, but we're getting our dose of summer.
This summer has been great for plants, not great for plants, as we know, and my plants are complete proof of that. They are not doing well this summer. Let's just put it that way. We need rain. We've had 0 millimeters of rain so far this August at Pearson Airport. We could get some this week. We're going to pay close attention to the possibility of some thunderstorms, maybe a few showers. But yeah, it's continuing to be hot and will be through the rest of this week as well. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. All right, let's talk about what it looked like this morning. Waking up in the GTA, it just looks hot in that image. Of course, we've had some very interesting sunrises and sunsets with a little bit of elevated air pollution here and there. Not too bad today here in southern Ontario as far as any drifting wildfire smoke is concerned. But it is something, again, that we're going to continue to watch as we make our way through this week. We're at a 4 on the Air Quality Health Index for today, widespread across southern Ontario. Watching midweek for a little bit of increased smoke activity in the lower Great Lakes. Then it's going to clear out as we inch closer to the weekend. Hey, midweek, we also will likely get a little bit of a break from the extreme humidity, but not today. It is already 30 degrees, feeling like 38. It's going to feel like 40 at the height of this afternoon. So another hot one for evening sports. Make sure the kids have sun protection, have extra bottles of water, and maybe a cool place to go between games or practices. Tonight's overnight low, around 22 degrees. That is still very warm. Anything above 20 degrees overnight, quite uncomfortable for sleeping, especially if you do not have access to air conditioning. Tomorrow, bit of a rinse and repeat as far as the heat is concerned, but we are going to introduce the possibility of showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon. And as mentioned, we need it. We've had 0 millimeters of rain so far this month at Pearson Airport. This time last year, we had about 14.5 millimeters, and we've got a ways to go to make it to our monthly average, which is about 78 millimeters of rain. Yeah, it's going to take a couple of downpours in order for us to catch up to that. And of course, in conditions like this, downpours wouldn't exactly be a good thing. It is very dry out there, and too much of a good thing with rain means that localized flooding could be a possibility. But regardless, we're going to watch this cold front. It's not going to cool us down all that much into tomorrow. And then for both Tuesday and Wednesday, we're looking at the possibility of some active weather. There's tonight a little active near the shoreline of Lake Huron, but dissipating as it makes its way toward us. There's tomorrow afternoon, so chance of some hit and miss, scattered showers or pop-up thunderstorms. Similar situation overnight and into the day on Wednesday. Let's get to that 7-day forecast. So it's just Tuesday, Wednesday that we see the chance of hit or miss showers or thunderstorms. And then the rest of the week looks dry. Bit of a break from the heat and humidity Thursday, Friday. Back is the heat for the weekend. And yeah, we've got that CNE icon on Friday. You know, summer is starting to wind down when we see that. That's the forecast for now. Nathan, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. The Blue Jays are off today and are set to begin a series with the Chicago Cubs tomorrow.
The team is recovering after managing to avoid being swept by the LA Dodgers in dramatic fashion.
He got him. 2 down.
With the bases loaded and just 1 out in the top of the ninth, Jays rookie Mason Fluharty struck out Dodgers superstar Shohei Ohtani to preserve a 1-run lead. He then got Mookie Betts to ground out, securing a 5-4 comeback win and earning his first major league save. The Jays will open a series with the Cubs at Rogers Center tomorrow night.
Still to come, new data finds a majority of men overlook sexism until it affects their partner. We'll have more on the research when we come back. Well, it looks like men have a bit of a blind spot when it comes to sexism, but researchers at York University have found a potential solution.
For more, we're joined by CTV Science and Tech Specialist Dan Riskin. Dan, welcome. Tell us about this potential fit.
Yeah, well, this is an interesting story that basically, this is research out of York University, and what they do is they have men read different stories about experiences women have had, and then they're asked, how sexist do you think that was? And it turns out that if you say, imagine this is happening to a stranger, men don't tend to see as much sexism as if you say, imagine this is your girlfriend. And then all of a sudden they get, whoa, that's totally sexist. That's totally unfair. They see it very, very differently. And when I heard this sort of headline, I thought, men are such idiots, right? Like, until it affects me, like, I just don't get it. I have no empathy for anybody else. But the researchers have a much more empathetic way to think about this. They see this as an opportunity to help men see this issue better. And so now that we know men have this bias, if we phrase things in this way, to please think about your girlfriend having this experience. Now think about, whether this is fair or not. It helps to sort of take that blind spot away.
I think it's important because oftentimes when it affects you or someone you know, you do think of it differently, whatever the subject.
Yeah, no, it's totally true. I mean, just for example, if you hear about a car fatality in a faraway city, you don't think anything. But if it's on your street, it really means it's a huge deal. It's the biggest event of the week. So, it really depends on how close it is to home. And so that helps people sort of drive that home.
So I was off last week. I did think of you. Don't panic. It was nothing bad. But I saw a coyote, and apparently observations like this help scientists do research.
Yeah, no, exactly. So if you see a coyote, take a picture with your phone. There's an app called iNaturalist, and there's a new research study that shows that the popularity of this app and its power for the scientific community has just exploded. In the last 5 years, the number of scientific papers using iNaturalist data has gone up 10-fold. That's a picture I took of a flower I saw in Jasper. Ooh. You can take a picture of anything. I was just like, what's that yellow flower? I took a picture and it told me what the flower was. It's got AI built into it. So it's fun for me, but now that observation of that flower is available to any researcher who wants to know the species, the distribution of those flowers, or how their coloration changes in different places. And your coyote observation, if you take a picture and put it into iNaturalist, and you can use old pictures and put them in there, could help people understand what time of day coyotes are active in urban versus rural areas. All these scientific questions become available. So iNaturalist, highly recommend. It's free, and it's a lot of fun.
Great benefit.
That's good to know. Yeah, the cicadas this year, so loud. I took a picture of what ended up being a dead cicada. I was like, what is this thing? And that's why.
Yeah, it tells you what it is. It's so fun. That's a true bug. You can actually call those bugs. A lot of insects you're not allowed to call bugs because they're not really bugs. Oh. A cicada is a bug. So.
We're learning something every day with Dan. And by the way, Dan's going to be going to Scotland. And there's some new research that says the real Loch Ness Monster sightings don't usually match the classic postcard image. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, listen, the only reason I'm going to Scotland is for this story. I mean, I'll have to go have fun and have a nice vacation too, but really, I'm doing it for the science, right? So this new paper came out. Turns out that when you look at Loch Ness and you look for that creature out there somewhere, there's a sort of image in people's heads of what Nessie's supposed to look like. And it's that one on all the postcards where the humps are sticking up out of the water. You know what I mean? It's like a snake that goes up and out of the water. Well, that shape is in about 30% of the souvenirs and T-shirts and things like that. But if you look at the actual observations, that shape is only on about 1.5% of them. And the researchers say that's good evidence that people are seeing something. Because if they were just imagining the Loch Ness Monster, there it is. If you were just imagining the Loch Ness Monster, you would see what you imagine the Loch Ness Monster should look like. So everybody would be reporting these humps out of the water, but people don't report that. So it's not necessarily that they're seeing Nessie, but they are seeing something, and that is why I'm going to Scotland. I got to go check it out.
You take a picture of it, send it to yourself for research.
Exactly. I put it in iNaturalist. Exactly.
You're going to have a blast.
I hope so.
We've been, and there was this old man, elderly man, who took us on a boat, and I couldn't tell if he was telling the truth or not, but it was so real the way he was describing it. He was showing the radar, and it was an adventure.
And then at the end, he pulled his mask off, and he was Nessie?
Not quite, but we had a great time.
Oh, wow. I've seen Scooby-Doo. I know how it ends. That's awesome.
Enjoy yourself,
I
Dan.
will. I hope I get that experience. That's great.
Yeah, I hope that guy's still there. Dan Riskin, Science and Tech Specialist. Bon voyage.
Thank you.
To some other news now. Saskatchewan's Trucking Association says a provincial tax on diesel is fueling the growing cost of food in that province.
The truckers are now calling for a break, saying it'll help lower the cost for other Canadians' grocery bills. CTV's Allison Bamford explains.
This load of groceries cost Nancy Cusey more than $200, the biggest bill she's paid in a long time.
Well, I had meat, and I guess that's probably the highest.
The latest report shows food prices in June up 2.8% from the previous year. Those in the business of transporting food want to help drive down costs.
Any tax, obviously, added on to the shipping costs of moving groceries is going to be applied to the cost to the consumer in the stores.
Saskatchewan's trucking industry is calling on the provincial government to remove a road tax on the diesel fuel that powers refrigerator units used to haul food and critical medications.
It doesn't seem like a lot, 12 cents a litre, but the consumption of diesel fuel for industry is quite large.
Some industries are already exempt from this tax for equipment that does not drive on the highway. If refrigeration units were exempt, the Saskatchewan government estimates the trucking industry would save $1 million a year, saying spread over the entire industry, this would have a minimal effect on food inflation.
You do increase the chances of seeing prices drop, but there is no certainty.
For consumers, every little bit would help.
Almost everything has gone up, but if you can get it on sale, it's a pretty good price.
Experts say meat, dairy, and produce won't experience significant price hikes in the coming months, but tariffs and counter tariffs could increase the cost of dry goods, frozen foods, and baked treats. Allison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
There's a little less than a year to go before the next Spider-Man film hits theaters, and fans got a sneak peek this weekend.
We've got some familiar faces on set.
Oh, Steven.
You know, I'm just going to do my best, hopefully get it right. No pressure.
Sony released a video of star Tom Holland celebrating his first day on set in Glasgow. Filming is underway for Spider-Man Brand New Day, which will mark Holland's 4th time playing the popular superhero. The movie is set to be released July 31st, 2026.
I don't understand at all. Why just her classroom? Why only her?
Meanwhile, horror film Weapons topped the box office this weekend, bringing in $42.5 million in its debut. Freakier Friday placed second, taking in $29 million in its first weekend in theaters. Marvel's latest hit, Fantastic Four: First Steps, dropped to 3rd place in its 3rd weekend in theaters, earning $15.5 million.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, the province released the final tally for new housing starts in 2024, but it's not where we need to be. Behind the pace to reach that goal of 1.5 million new homes by the year 2031. We'll have the latest details when we return.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
The final tally for Ontario's housing starts last year has been revealed, and it's behind what is needed for the province to reach its 2031 housing goal. The government recently updated its housing tracker for the first time in 8 months. It shows about 94,700 housing starts for 2024. That includes long-term care beds, post-secondary housing, and retirement home suites, in addition to 73,000 traditional housing starts. In order to meet its goal of 1.5 million new homes by the year 2031, Ontario needed to add 125,000 homes last year. Rental prices, meantime, are on the decline in Canada's largest cities, including Toronto and Vancouver.
However, despite the falling costs, many renters say being able to afford to live in either city remains out of reach. CTV's Colton Prale has the details.
This is North Vancouver, Canada's most expensive rental market that's now getting a little cheaper.
It's beautiful, it's very livable, like it's something that we are super interested in.
Here and in major cities across the country, prices are coming down. In Vancouver, the average rental is now 9% cheaper than this time last year. In Calgary, it's nearly 12%, while Toronto is down almost 5%. But ask renters, and they say it doesn't feel like much of a drop.
It was quite the eye-opener and somewhat disappointing at times.
It's the 10th month in a row average rental prices have dropped in Canada. In Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal, that trend goes back at least 2 years.
As the interest rates have dropped now, there are some potential renters that now can qualify to get into the market. So you take that demand away from the market, plus all the purpose-built rentals, plus the fact that the immigration policies have changed, and that puts us in the position we're in today.
Meanwhile, housing starts and sales in the country's biggest cities have cratered. This week, a group of developers responsible for over half of Canada's yearly housing starts called on Ottawa to change the foreign home buyer ban, exempting the purchase of new homes, and to extend the GST rebate on new home sales for 3 years.
Please do something. Do something so that you can actually make this industry survive.
The Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation says housing starts need to double to over 430,000 a year for the next decade in order to meet demand.
The Liberals have promised to reach that pace, but only by the end of the decade. Builders are warning construction could continue to slow before it gets better. Colton Prail, CTV News, Ottawa.
Coming up, transit enthusiasts in Vancouver are trying to collect them all. We'll have more on the city's transit service releasing its first ever set of trading cards when we come back. Transit enthusiasts in Vancouver recently got their hands on some new collectibles.
The city's transportation agency released its first ever series of trading cards. CTV's Shannon Patterson explains.
The keenest collectors lined up before dawn.
I got here at 5:30 in the morning.
Hundreds of transit enthusiasts flocked to Waterfront Station for the release of TransLink's new trading cards.
Most of us are like Pokemon fans or transit fans here in Vancouver, and so having something like this would definitely be an addition to our collection.
Are you excited?
Oh, I'm super excited. I have butterflies in my stomach.
There are 5 cards in the collection. The rarest of them all is the Mark I SkyTrain.
When you get to the front of the line, it's going to be an envelope like this. You got to open it up, and it's a total surprise when it comes to what cards you're going to get.
There are 800 of these TransLink trading card blind packs up for grabs today. There are 3 cards inside each one, and in 15 of them, the rare Mark I.
Thanks for being here so early.
Being first in line paid off for Alfred Ordanza. He got one of the ultra-rare Mark I's.
Definitely worth the wait. I'm going to add it to my transit memorabilia and going to cherish it forever.
The majority of collectors had to be content with more common cards.
I had high hopes, but these are just as good.
I think, honestly, even though I didn't get a rare one, I am happy with what I have because, we have to be grateful with what we have, right?
So worth coming out?
Yeah, of course, 100%.
While it's fun for attendees, events like this are also smart PR for TransLink.
We've got marketers who are really the brains behind all of this, and we've got amazing designers, and then we've got teams who are looking at how to promote this and how to really help the community, the public, connect with our brand.
It was TransLink's CEO who handed out the envelopes, and then he got in on the action, opening his own pack.
I got a West Coast Express.
How much fun is this?
Oh, this is so fun. I mean, it shows you exactly how passionate people are about transit in Vancouver, right? Like, people are excited about it. They want more of this.
You got the Mark I?
I got the Mark I.
Single cards will be handed out at car-free events this summer and the Peony Fair. But these collectors got them first.
When you get older, you can, show these to your grandchildren and, say, hey, I was here for the launch of the cards, yeah.
Shannon Patterson, CTV News, Vancouver.
Well, we are under a heat warning. We probably don't have to tell you because if you step outside, you can feel it. It is oven-like.
Yeah, and it has been for so much of this summer that I'm starting to sound like a little bit of a broken record. But here we go again. Heat warning in place for southern Ontario GTA, much of Quebec, and northern parts of our province as well. Here's one more look at what that looks like. It'll be in place for today, for part of tomorrow as well. It's still going to be hot on Wednesday, just not quite as uncomfortable. But let's take you through tonight. Overnight low 22 degrees, still going to feel like 28 at the coolest point of the night. Get those fans working through the overnight hours. And then tomorrow, a repeat as far as the heat is concerned, but also we introduce the possibility of some showers and some thunderstorms. Now, if they happen, they will likely be scattered in nature, the pop-up variety, so it's not guaranteed rain, but we're saying there's a chance for both Tuesday and for Wednesday. The cold front really doesn't cool us down all that much for Wednesday, but look at Thursday and Friday, a little bit of a break from the extreme heat. It's still going to be sunny. Temperatures are still going to be in the upper 20s. A little refreshing, dare I say, but check out the weekend. The heat is going to be back. The temperature itself is going to be 32 degrees on Saturday. Nathan and Michelle.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great day.